that either you, in your personal setting, either you or someone you were communicating with was effectively communicating. Kind of tell us a little bit about the situation, how that made you feel, and what they did. Or you can put it in the chat.
Okay, I can say a time that I felt like I had some effective communication. Um, when I was pregnant with my last child, I think due to the fact of my high risk pregnancy and the complication I was set through last time, I think with me speaking more about, oh, I feel this pain or this is going on,
Mm-hmm.
um, they actually got me more tests, more ultrasounds done. So I felt like they was effectively listening and communicating with me and getting the job done because they actually did the tests that I wanted them to do. So
Mm-hmm. Great. And so what I'm hearing is that you were able to advocate for yourself
right,
and use clear language and your personal experience to do that, right? And so I
right,
think that's an incredibly important piece when we're thinking about effective communication, both when we're giving it and receiving it, particularly as we're thinking about going into these client public facing roles and opportunities where we're engaging with people day in and day out. And our word is our bond, and that is a big part of the work that we're doing. Okay. Yeah, Jenny, I'm going to stop sharing. If you could pull up this presentation. Sorry, y'all, I'm having like technical difficulties here, making this crazy.
hi everybody. I'm in class, so I'm trying to give me some watch time hours at the same time as
Thank you,
today
Jenny.
I have virtual class, so I'm happy. I'm lucky. I ain't gotta go nowhere. I get to be at home.
When we think about team collaboration, we're looking at coordination and we're looking at efficiency, right? And so when we're in these roles, when you're doing the more motivational interview yesterday, you have clients where efficiency is really important, right? We want things done in a timely manner. No one wants to waste their time. And so that's really important when we're looking at communication.
I
Back to yesterday in motivational interviewing. If you want to motivate people, if you really want them to get engaged in whatever it is that you want done, it's important to be effectively communicating. And if you want just someone to simply follow your directions, if you're unclear about your directions, if you're not concise about your directions, it's harder for your team to follow. And so it's really important to be able to effectively communicate in that setting as well. In conflict resolution, in mediation, in problem solving, um, yeah, client relations. So that's definitely something that will be important as we move
yeah,
into
I'm in
roles as
class.
community health workers and other similar roles, and probably roles and jobs that you all are working in now. If they're clients and public facing, effective communication is really important to understanding the client's needs and providing them with excellent service. So again, if we go back to the motivational interviewing yesterday, um, can someone kind of speak to maybe the challenges or successes they felt like they had when communicating with the client?
I think my challenge was once they shut me down, I shut down. Instead of
Mm,
figuring out another way to go around about it, but
mm-hmm.
still get the information that I needed.
Yeah. That's a really great point. And so, what part of effective communication can we utilize if it's that sort of situation?
One of the suggestions to me is when they said, "Why are you asking me about this? Why are we talking about this?" And I can go back to the fact of, okay, so your drinking was the habit of or the reason why you're have these injuries, or this is the reason why you're kind of in here. So I figure if we get to the root of it, then maybe we
Mm-hmm.
can solve a lot of the problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And so when we are, and this will be in the next session, but when we're faced with a challenge with our effective communication, right, whether it's a client who is shutting down or there may be some sort of language barrier or cultural barrier, right, really persevering and using these skills to say, okay, this is hard. I'm acknowledging that this is hard. How do we move past it? What skills am I able to use? Do I need to better listen? Do I need to go back to square one and reintroduce myself and try to get their goals for what this interaction will be? So really using, when we get to this, but yes, thank you, Keisha. And then innovation and creativity, idea sharing, feedback loop, and kind of already addressed that, like giving and receiving feedback, communicating that effectively is going to be key to everyone's growth and development and supporting the clients that we are helping effectively. Okay. Now I want y'all to think about a time when you were in a professional setting, at a job, um, and someone or you effectively communicated with someone. What did that feel like? And what are the things that were happening to facilitate that? And while y'all think about that, I'm just gonna, yeah, Deja, that's a great point. Sometimes it's really hard to know what the right question is. There might be, I don't necessarily think there's ever a situation where there's one right question or one right, and one wrong question. I think it's a matter of practice will come into play for sure, and looking at the context and the situation. And I think giving grace to both yourself and the client as you try to figure out what the right question is, I think is really important. Yes, absolutely. Without being invasive and judgmental, I think we extend our judgment um, when we're in this sort of work and really focusing on the end goal. And the end goal is to get the client the services and the support they need to get back to, we were talking about social determinants of health, to get back to this place of health and well-being, right? That's our goal as community health workers or public folks working in public health. Um, Yeah, and we can talk more about that, Kaylin, too, because a couple of folks have mentioned it. So, Jenny or Anna, if we maybe want to take some notes about addressing this idea of asking questions um, without feeling like you're judging someone or being
Hi, everybody.
judgmental.
I'm just in
But does anyone
class
have any thoughts on that?
trying to get my
I
watch time
I
hours
think I
up.
think it's important for the
I just
client
had one,
to
can't you tell?
have
Yeah.
control over their
Mm,
well-being and health, and so that
mm-hmm,
entitles them to feel like they're empowered to be
mm-hmm.
in charge of whatever success that they want to have
Hi, Strike.
with the treatment plan.
That's a great point. How do you communicate that? In what ways do you communicate that to them?
Um, I allowed, well, I don't allow, I encourage them to want to be a part of the process. Um,
Mhm.
I encourage them to want to make decision making in the process.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think too that there's opportunities to really say that, you know, to communicate that really clearly. Everything that you just said was perfect, and I think it's important for folks to hear that. And again, you know, if we're saying that clearly and concisely, they'll feel that, they'll understand that. They may not be able to receive it maybe right when we're saying it, but it's important to say that. Because I do think, again, this role as a community health worker, some of these roles, they're really serving as this linkage between like the clinicians, like the doctors and the nurses, and the patients, and they're able to really say that I'm here to advocate for you. I want you to take ownership over this opportunity, um, to improve your health and well-being,
I'm not
to get you the
sad.
help
I'm
that you
just sitting in
need. We're in
class
partnership in doing this,
listening.
so I think there's opportunities. Oh, look at that cat! Opportunities to do that. All right.
Just tired. Been a long day.
Could something we say or like phrase is like, oh, my goal or our goal is to make sure that like you feel comfortable. Like if someone were to, for example, let's say that a patient were to get combative and they're upset, could you kind of like
No,
redirect them in a way,
it's
like
right.
the energy or
Mm-hmm.
whatever they're saying by just saying the goal
Yeah.
here is to help you and make sure that all your needs, and if you're feeling that I'm not the one or I'm the person
I'm getting
not
my
helping you,
associate's
how can
degree.
we make the situation better? Or how can we make
But
you feel more
right now
heard
I'm
or
doing
your
my
needs
health
are met?
coaching class.
Yeah, Carla, I think that's great. And tomorrow, when we do the motivational interviewing scenarios, we'll really touch on this idea of de escalation. But absolutely. And I think, again, to your point, some of it is humility, right? Just like, I'm
Only on
here to
Wednesdays.
help you, and being really frank and
I
honest
do it
about that.
online.
Um,
But Tuesdays and
so, yes,
Thursdays I go in
absolutely. And then,
person.
Deja, I see, um, making sure you ask permission before
It's
giving
only
suggestions or
6:40
going into a
here.
topic, which assures them that they are in control. And I love that. I think that's a really important piece. I don't think, yeah, I think that's a really important piece to ask, because it does feel like this idea of like co-creation, of the goals that are happening. And I, you know, can I maybe give you a suggestion? Would you be open to
Oakland.
this thing? Would you be open to that thing? Um, and to Nikisha's point, it may be like, no, I'm not open to that. And so we're like, okay, are there things that you would be open to? What are some things that you would be open to? And thinking about that and letting them lead that conversation. Thank you. All right, Jenny. So essentially, with our effective communication skills, we're looking at being adaptable. Sometimes this is called like code switching, but being able to adapt our communication styles to different situations and audiences, and is incredibly important. The way that you, I think, in essence, like you are who you are, right? And your communication style is what it is. Um, but the adaptability piece is like, I am Asha and I communicate in the way in which I communicate with my kids and at work. There are slight tweaks to it, right? And I think that's part of effective communication. So people are receiving what you have to say, um, and really able to hear. And we'll do some things in listening. But yes, Anisha, absolutely, boundaries are important. There are things that you all are carrying out that, you know, you can definitely bring up in your engagement with clients, and you'll have a chance to practice that tomorrow some more with motivational interview. And then active listening. Um, we always want to ensure that, you know, we know that communication is a two-way process. So it's not just talking, but it's also listening, and not not just listening to, but listening so that we're really hearing, what folks are saying. And essentially, at its root, it's an information exchange. So we want to make sure we're giving accurate information, and that goes back to this idea of trust, right? I think it's really important to always, I'll go back to this idea of humility in our communication and being willing and not feeling any shame or feeling bad about saying, you know what, I don't have the answer for that. I do not know. I will get you that answer and get back to you. But we never want to intentionally give inaccurate information to folks, because then that impacts the trust that they have in us and the systems that we're working for. And then also just timeliness, getting back to folks when we say we're going to get back to them also goes back to building
Hi.
trust and is an important piece when it comes to this exchange of
Knocking this school
information
out
and
today.
communication. Okay. And then there's both verbal and nonverbal communication and ways in which we
Hey,
communicate. And I
Triana
think
Taylor.
folks mentioned that before. Um, Dr. J makes fun of me because I'm a hand neck roller type of person when I talk. And
Yeah, I have
so,
11 kids.
that's just part of my nonverbal communication in, conjunction with my verbal communication. But when we're looking at verbal communication, um, what we're writing, so emails, whatever, written communication, and then what we're saying. And then someone made the point earlier that it's nonverbal communication too. So that's our physical behaviors, gestures, and expressions. All right. I feel like I saw someone using the whiteboard earlier. I think it was Alicia. Alicia, you were able to write. So, Jenny, do we
I
have the
wish I
whiteboard
could keep,
enabled?
where I can get some
And
from
we
because they
should.
say my
Okay.
husband make too much.
Um, Go ahead
I
and
need some
and if you
though.
can't figure out the whiteboard, that's fine too. But put some examples of nonverbal communication.
My associate's
What are some
degree.
ways that people communicate
Right now, I'm in
nonverbally?
my health coach in class. So, like, when you're in the hospital and somebody come up to you and they
Yep. Eye
pretty much
contact,
want to
absolutely. Shaking your
help
head,
you out and they're like, do
nodding.
you need any help with anything? Do you need
I see a
resources?
circle
Do you need
and
me
another circle.
to
Oh, I know what that is. I'm good at Pictionary.
help you
Eye
get your
contact.
medicine? Do you need, it's like a health coach. Thank
Posture.
you.
Yep. What about posture, right? Like, well, we'll get to it. Facial expression. Yep. I love that someone's still drawing this eye. I can't tell who it is because I can't see very well. It's Sarah. Oh. Eye rolling, right? So we could have good eye contact and we're looking at folks, or we could be rolling our eyes, body language, absolutely, all the things, shaking your head, hand gestures. Yep. Your tone of voice, stomping your feet. Yes,
No, I
got a
don't know
lot for my kids.
Spanish, but my husband speak it.
Anything else? No eye contact, avoiding contact, fidgeting, right? I think maybe we saw that in some of the motivational interviewing yesterday, in some of the scenarios, like folks were fidgeting, and what is that kind of, what does that display to us? What might that mean if someone's fidgeting? If someone's fidgeting a lot,
They're kind of prepping
nail
us to
biting.
be like health
What
coaches
might
to
some of these
drug
things be?
addicts, and I
Signs
don't want
of
to be that.
what?
I don't want to work with
Crossing your arms,
people that's
Nervousness or like
on drugs,
distraction.
getting off of
uh-huh,
What it
drugs,
is.
nervousness.
none of it. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
rather work with
Nervousness.
women,
It could be
mothers.
anxiety, right? As we're
I'm
observing.
comfortable
So
with
all
that,
of these things, anxiety. Yep. So all of these
which
things are
they
really
already told me
important
I already have a
as
job
we are,
at this hospital
kind of
with working with women.
using
So
both
it's kind of
verbal
boring.
and
I gotta sit
nonverbal
here and
cues
listen to this.
to see what someone is communicating to us, right? That's incredibly important. Not only to be
I
able
can't
to
wait
see
to
it from
just get
other
in the
folks, right?
hospital and
But to
start
see
working.
how we're doing these things, right? to check our own way that we're communicating. So it's a both and, right? It's looking at these verbal cues from other folks, but then it's also thinking about our cues. Like, you couldn't mean to, it could be intentional, right? But Jayla said posture, right? So if your posture is slumped, what might that be conveying to someone? If your arms are crossed, someone mentioned that, crossing your arms, what might that be?
You're uninterested, you don't
could
care.
Be, could be. In the next session, we'll talk a little bit more about barriers, but it's important as we're thinking about these that some of these are cultural. So in some cultures, like it might be to us if you're avoiding eye contact, that's disrespect or you're not listening, but there may be cultures in which you don't look people in the face, and that's not a sign of disrespect, that's actually a sign of respect, right? So there's all these cultural considerations that we're thinking about as we're thinking about communication, our nonverbal communication, right? It's not just language, right? It's also, all of these nonverbal cues that may have cultural context that we may be unaware of, and may unintentionally cause confusion or harm or mistrust. All right. Jenny, next slide. Thank you. Oh, beautiful. So with nonverbal communication, we're thinking about posture. Someone brought that up. So if you're slouching, I know I have like a teenager in the house, or he's 20 now, but like, they slouch. Gestures, facial expressions, eye contact, use of space. What do I mean when I say use of space? Maybe someone getting too close or invading your personal space. Yep. And again, that's a cultural thing. So there may be in cultures in which, like, you get up close. You're up in somebody's face. Where some of us are like, ooh, that's too close. I feel uncomfortable. But for other folks, that might mean like a level of comfort. And also, folks who may have certain disabilities, like that may, all of this is like a context that we need to take into consideration. Touch, like Vidal was mentioning yesterday, like I'm not comfortable shaking hands, but to some folks, if you don't shake their hand, what is that showing them? And so in addition to our nonverbal communication, sometimes we have to provide clarity with our words, right? If one of our actions is unintentionally misunderstood or misrepresented, then it's important to be able to use our verbal communication to say, hey, it's not, I'm not that I'm disrespecting you, or, whatever the case may be. But just being really honest about that. Paralanguage, so the vocalist, so like our tone of voice, someone brought that up earlier. Am I, speaking really softly? What's my tone of voice? My appearance and how I look may also be communicating something about me, intentionally or unintentionally. A use of time, silence, right? And so, what can silence be interpreted to mean? Can change. All of this is really contextual. Facial expressions, eye contact, and the rest of those are stupid. All right. Thanks, Jenny. Okay, and then we already touched on this, but listening is a crucial skill in effective communication. There's different types of listening. They serve different purposes and contexts. But I want to do an activity. So, it's called Last Word and Last Sentence. So